What advice would you give a young new associate who is just starting his or her career at Lock Supply?
I would tell them this is probably the best thing you could do for your career. You're joining in the company today that is growing, and you will have an opportunity to advance with your ability. And it doesn't take that long if you're really sincere and really the job, but you're very lucky. There's not a whole lot of companies out there today that you go in that you can, in a short time, be part owner of it. Lock Supply is an ESOP company that goes, so.
What advice would you give a new associate that wants to promote within Lock Supply?
Well, hey, I would tell him he couldn't find a better place to go to work, because every person that we hire, that's what the intention we have is for people to advance. We don't want someone just to have a job. We want somebody that's wanting to advance. And of course, now there's a lot of times they'll have to relocate.
Everyone has good days and bad days. In 50 years at Lock, you would be hard-pressed to find anyone that could remember you displaying a bad day. Can you explain how you accomplished that?
Well, thank you. I appreciate the comment. But yes, I can. I loved my job. I loved to come into work. I loved the people that I worked with.
Can you describe what customer service means to you and what it should mean to Lock Supply?
Yes, customer service is everything. In fact, that is your only profit pool of the company's profit. If you don't have the customers, we won't have anything. But the customers, and Mr. Locke, that was one of the first things to tell you. And I know you saw some of the letters that we used to have with the people that saying the customer is what make the company the most important thing to Lock Supply. Mm-hmm. He had a saying once that, I use that he may make the checks, but your customer pays your salary. We always had our counters at least 10 foot from one of the doors. And I don't care if I had 10 people at the counter or 10 people to wait on, you look up and you recognize that person that comes in and you tell him, hey, get a cup of coffee or, sit around, we'll get with you as quick as we can. Then the next thing you did with the customer service in it was you tried to find out as quickly where he was buying his supplies, if you could. And if occasionally, sometimes you couldn't. But if you couldn't, make sure you walked out to pick up with him when you could, if they're at a time, and see what was on his pickup, the material that you used. And usually you knew then, by looking at his pickup, you knew where he was buying his material or buying it, and you knew then pretty much, and a good manager in any branch will know his competition, what they sell, how they treat their customers, what their delivery time is. So pay attention, and when you go out to look at their cars, what they have got in and what they're using. And then get the occasion to ask you. One of the things you can do, if they're not a regular customer, you ask them, is there anything that you could do to generate more of his business? There's something we can do that we can make it better for you to trading with us or buying or price on it. And another thing is never talk about what you want to talk about. You find out what his likes. And you can usually tell that by jackets he wears or caps he wears or something. If he likes boating or hunting or something, you find out what they like. And when you talk to him or something, you talked about what they want to talk about. And of course, if you can, you learn their kids' names on a regular kid or a grandkid, and especially their grandkids, because you can really get to the heart with the grandkids. And another thing is, you never lie to a customer. If you try, you don't try to fake it, or don't try to then, because a customer will forgive you for making a mistake, but he's not going to forget about you lying to him. So if you can't make a delivery, or if you don't have a product in at that time, tell them up front. Don't. Now, there is occasions that you can call. Of course, we're a little different. Our ordering is done out of the corporate office for all your materials. And you can call in and ask, if we got that product. I would call in a lot of times when I knew we didn't have the product or even was going to stock it. But at least you tried. He knew that someone cared about what I wanted to do. You took your time and to ask him. And you never let them leave without thanking them, and make sure they know that you really, you're really sincere in the appreciation they get on it. Now, there are a lot of other things that you can do, but those are some of the highlights.
What advice do you have for the sales team calling on customers?
Well, pretty much the same advice I'd give to a manager with the walk-in customer. Number one, when he's out and making sales calls, the first thing he does, we have sale flyers and sales books all the time. You should carry those in your branch, and if you don't know the customer, it gives you an opening to make. Do you have our catalog, or you get our sale flyers? And then if he's a new customer you're going into, you would ask him, is there any way that we can help you in any way grow your business on it? You also, in the conversation, let them know that you are there to make business better for them. Don't go in with the attitude that, what can you do for me, when you're going to those customers, because you're on his home territory. It's what we, like Supply, can do for you to make your sales better. Sometimes they'll give you a answer, sometimes they won't.
So what happens when you're calling on a customer that's very loyal to our competition? How do you switch a customer over to Lock Supply?
Tell him you keep dropping. Repetition is one thing. He may tell you, there's no need for you to stop because he's already got a tray. But you continue, if you got like new literature, new stuff, somewhere on your territory, you're going to pass by that same place. Every time you pass by it, drop in there and drop off some literature and say, hey, if we can ever help you, we'll do that. I have done that in several cases. I've had customers that would tell me, hey, no use coming by. But every once in a while, if you stop long enough, you'll get to know the people that's in there and his workers. And it doesn't hurt to tell his worker, hey, if you ever need something and you're real close or some little something, well, just holler, we'll get it to you. And you'd be surprised how many of those will say, hey, why don't we go to Lock instead of driving all the way across town? A lot of time pick up little stuff. And then, like I say again, too, you know how many people are there. It doesn't hurt to stop and get a box of donuts. Everyone, if you've got caps, Lock Supply, or pens or stuff, just because they hadn't traded with you once doesn't mean they're not, because things change. Their loyalty, the people that work in those other branches, they have people that they feel loyal to that quits or leaves or dies or something, and you'll be right in touch. In fact, one of our best customers was at the time when I was in a branch, and they still got sons in the business now trading with us, was Avan and Lakey. They wouldn't trade, and I was only 3 blocks from them, and it was probably a year or almost, and I was in the store, like I say, about 3 blocks. He finally called up over there and said some cuss words in front of us, says, "Go ahead, I'll come by here this morning and I'll give you an order." Well, the reason he was loyal to that customer, and I couldn't blame him for being loyal, we had had a recession before that time, and this supply house that he was trading at was the only one that would continue to sell to him and still owed him. Of course, that was a supply house that was pretty much a regional supply. Oklahoma wasn't their only store. They could afford it. But they became the best customer I had.
So what tips would you give someone that doesn't really like calling on customers, that it's really hard for them to step outside their comfort zone? What tips would you give them to step outside their comfort zone? It's
hard for one to understand that. It's hard to make them. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. I have made sales calls back when I store. I have went out and not made one sale, not one call the whole week, or maybe just 1 or 2. And the next week or the week after, practically every one of them had called in an order. So you don't know, even when they say no, that you haven't, because you've talked to them and gave it. But getting back to teaching one to call on, if he isn't outgoing, it's gonna take a lot. It's gonna take your sales manager to go out with them, and it may be that he'll never get good at it. And if you don't, in that, our only choice is taking our second man that's in a branch. Be the manager there to do the counter, and most of them will take a challenge. But like I would always say, or always think, and it's nothing we can sit here and talk about is original. Whatever we think we've really thought of something, it's been used before. But I would always think of it as, hey, every time I get a no, I'm closer to a yes. So
that's one way to look at it.
And it is a challenge. You get to know that you can pick up a lot of information making calls to the branches instead of you learn what they stock or what they're selling. You learn more of the people, and a lot of time you get to meet the guys that work in the back of the store, plumbers and stuff, and they're the ones that you really try to work on too. If the owner doesn't like to trade or hasn't traded with them before, you get the plumbers, the people that work for this customer, to liking you, and eventually they will talk him into stopping together. If you can prove to them that you can help them, save them time, or the things where you really.
Mr. Locke's slogan, "Make money the easy way," by
yes.
right.
Right.
So what tips do you have for branch associates in servicing their customers?
In servicing their customers? The one thing, when you're starting out with the service, the service we have that most of our competitors don't have is our locations. If you've got a customer in any part of Oklahoma City, or any part of Oklahoma, or Texas, or Arkansas, or Missouri, or Kansas, if they've got an account at one branch, whether it be electrical, heating and cooling, or plumbing, if they've got an account, they've got a place to buy. There is a convenience. No one can compete with our convenience. yet. A lot of them have tried to duplicate it, and they're making progress, but they're not. They're like a long ways been there as far as service. Our managers can sell service anytime over our competition if they'll do what our policies are about delivery. And another thing, on most of our branches, in their outline branches, probably over 50% of their trade or their customers are out of town. They never see lock supply, or very seldom on it. To those people, the delivery driver is lock supply. He's the one they meet, and you've got to make sure that he is a good representative of lock supply, or you want to. And you make sure that you have him to ask those people what in service or anything, and he puts the material where they want to him. He treats them just like he would if he was in the branch and somebody else was watching him. But service will gain. Nobody can compete with us on the service part.
What makes Lock Supply different from our competitor?
Some of the same things we mentioned. Now, I was always, and maybe I'm a little prejudiced or like to brag a little bit, but nobody can match Lock Supply in our associates. The people we get, the people we train. I think in our business, what we do, I don't think, if they're trained and they've been there, I don't think anybody can beat our people. I think our people are the politest. I know our sales district managers and regional managers, what we've got now, I know they're watching those things. I know they know, but they pretty much, it all goes back to what you've asked before, service, and you're treating your customers. Lock Supply can make the biggest difference in their employees and in their service, delivery service, your filling, your service, and branching. You can get your orders filled. And another thing that Lock Supply has, now a lot of the others have gone to it too. Lock Supply has a lot of firsts, but your self-service in your branches, when you go in, they can go in. If you're busy and they have to wait, they can go fill their own order and they get to what. And that helps also in this. A lot of our, I think, managers, some of them didn't like what we were doing first, but it shows they know we stock a lot of things now that they didn't know we stocked before. Before, in your wholesale house, it was pretty much wholesale. You sold to dealers and stuff, and all you had was a sales counter. That's all the customer saw, and he would give his order to the person on the counter, and he'd give it to an order filler, which was in back, and he'd go around and put it on the dock and back up and load it. But now, they say that over 75% of our stuff, more than that I think, is visible. You can see the products that we have.
What is the most important character trait a Lock Supply associate should have?
Honesty is probably the most important. And in that, I mean, not just with the people that you talk to and telling things, but honesty to yourself. And for example, a lot of the times I would tell people that if you're not really don't like this job, or if it doesn't, you're going to be miserable the rest of your life and probably your family. You probably should find something else. As being honest to themselves and being honest to the things that they do. I mean, they're doing business and the things you do in private.
What do you think our customers would say is the most important thing that Lock Supply could do for them?
Number one is for them to know that you're interested in why they're at your place, what they want, and that you're really interested, that you don't want to just take their order and get them out of the store, that you're wanting to get what they need and stuff, that you're really interested in the person individually. And then again, I think the second thing would be honesty. And then a lot of it would be character. And then some of it would knowledge of the product that they want, knowing the product. And most of them, how to use the product is not as important, because most of them are dealers anyway, and they know, unless it's the same product they've used but different, and explain it. But it still goes back to number one, honesty and character, and knowing that you're interested in their needs.
What do you think most of our customers would consider Lock Supply's role in their business?
As really one, to fulfill their need, to help them with the products that they need to. And we're equipped to do that a lot better than most of our competitors are, because we handle 3 products. We've got the electrical, the plumbing, and the heating and cooling, and some other things on it. Now that is a one location. That helps them in time, and Lock Supply does have in every one of those competitive prices in all of the 3 products. So you don't go to one place and get it. But another thing that helps those people, or think our shop is, to have, when they come into a branch, to have the inventory that they use in their trade. We're fortunate in that area too, because we've got delivery overnight to most stores, and 3 times at least to all stores, right? Right. And so if you can get it very quick, if we don't have it, a lot quicker than your competitors do. You can get 1 or 2 items maybe over through their overnight delivery on FedEx, but that's small products.
Yeah. Some of our stores get 2-day-week deliveries.
Oh, so okay.
Some of them, very few, but a few do.
So I feel Lock Supply has a great advantage over our competition as far as being able to meet our customers' needs.
What is your definition of customer service?
My definition of customer service is pleasing a customer in a product or a service for his complete satisfaction.
What advice would you give our associates to grow our company?
Number one would be customer service. Realize that our existence is because that customer comes in the store, to please him, and also to make sure that he knows when he leaves your branch or your customer service, or you leave your delivery or whatever, that he is appreciated. I mean, and be sincere about it.
What advice would you give the management team to continue to walk in Mr. Lock's footsteps?
But the customer is just like we talked about in the branch. If we don't have him and we don't please him, well, we can forget about the rest of it. One thing, I'd like to say, one really, really important thing is when a customer comes in, just remember the object of this meeting right here is to take care of the customer needs, not your needs. If you've got a big ego, you really don't need to be in any kind of a sales because you're going to get it bent and dent a lot. I can remember when I first went to work in the signs in the stores, there was always signs up at front, no profanity, no profanity, no one behind the counter, no one behind the counter, no one in the warehouse. And the first time, when I got my first branch, I took all those sounds down. And I can remember Mr. Lockett came by when I went to a trip, and he says, "Where are your signs?" I said, "I took them down." And he says, "Why?" And I said, "Mr. Lockett, you spent a lot of money sending me to Dale Carnegie. And one of the things that I learned was you get a customer come in your branch, you want to see a lot of yeses. You don't want to see a lot of no's." And I said, "I just took going to school that you sent me to. I did read that book." So, and it's true. All of those signs you put up there, most of the customers you have, they're not going to pay attention to you. They're going to cuss whether they want to. They're going to go back in the warehouse if they want to. They're going to get behind the counter. But at least a lot of them will respect them, and the ones that don't, they're going to do it anyway. So I want them thinking yes when you come in the door.
Well, Louie, I'd like to thank you very much for coming to Oklahoma City and sitting down and visiting with me today. It's nice to go over the history of Lock Supply and talk about customer service to help our company continue to grow. Because this day, there's a lot of people that didn't have the opportunity to meet Mr. Lock or even know who Mr. Lock is. So it's been really nice sitting here visiting with you, going over the history of Lock Supply and talking about Mr. Lock and going down memory lane. And I'd just like to tell you thank you very much. And Lock Supply will always consider you part of our family, and we love you dearly, Louie.
Well, Tammy, there's nothing I'd rather do is sit down and talk about Lock Supply and talk about you people were my life. You were family.
Over 50 years.
For 50 years, you were my life, and I loved every one of you guys. I enjoyed it every time I come in the front door. Our people are the greatest in the world, and Lock Supply is one of the greatest places to work for. Wow. And I know it will be. And I love meeting you. Today, I meet on your three generations when I go into some of the branches. Their father, the grandfather, and the grandsons on it. And that is real thrilling for me to see, and I'm still coming into Lock Supply. But it's a great company, and I'm so glad that I was a part of it.
We are too.